Okay, so I'm gonna go back to Twine. Um, so of course you're gonna want to edit your game and get it to a point where you're ready to publish it. As I said before, it doesn't have to be completely finished. It's not expected for you to have finished it. We still have another week to work on these projects. So if it's 5% done or 50% done or 99% done, it doesn't really matter. We're gonna publish it whatever state it's in now, and then get feedback to use to edit and update and complete the project. So what we want to do is publish a web page. When we create a Twine project, it's essentially just making a web page. And so if we go to build, remember last week or 2 weeks ago we talked about exporting a TWE file. That's like the edit file that you can import to keep editing. But today what we want to do is actually publish to a file. So this will make a project file that we can publish online. So I'm going to click Publish to File, and it's just one HTML page, so it's pretty simple. If you have like other stuff in there, you may see other stuff, but this is basically all it is. You can see my HTML page here. I'm going to upload this to itch. I might want to, make edits to it and changes to it. Let me put this in a different view so it's easier to see what I'm talking about. Okay, sorry, I have a bunch of stuff in my downloads folder. Let's just go ahead and delete all this other stuff. Okay, so there's that HTML page. If you want to look at what it looks like, you can open it in any text editor. So this is Sublime Text. You can see it's just an HTML document. It has all this code that is for Twine engine to get set up correctly, and it's a bunch of like JavaScript and CSS stuff. But then all the way down here somewhere, you'll see your content, although I actually don't. Where's my content? Maybe it's, okay, it's right here in the middle. So you can see like, you see a whole box of muffins. This is like one of the passages from my project. So all the content of your project is kind of in here somewhere. So obviously, I wouldn't really recommend editing this, but you could make edits to it if you wanted to. And you can preview it in the browser as well. Like if I drag this into Chrome, you're gonna see your project and how it's gonna look on the internet. But this isn't published yet, this is just a file. So we want to publish this on itch.io. We have the file here. It's an HTML file. If you have other, well, actually, no, for this one, you won't have other stuff. So you can just use this HTML file. We don't really need to do anything else. I don't think anyway, so we'll find out if we do. Okay, so we've got our HTML file. We're going to go back to itch. I'm going to leave this open actually so I can submit it, but I'm going to open a new itch window, and I'm already logged in. You'll have to log in, or you have to create an account. It's, there's a few steps, but it's pretty easy. You just need an email, and if you need help with that, we can go over it. So I'm going to go to upload new project, and this is the form to create a new project. So I'll create a title. You should just name this whatever the title of your project is. I'm going to call, I forget what my story is about. It's like eating muffins, muffin or cereal. So my title will be muffins and cereal, and that will create a URL. You can change this URL if you want to. You can see that my username is at the beginning of the URL, and then the end of the URL is the name. You can add a short description if you want. This is just going to show under your itch project thumbnail. So I could say, will you eat the muffin or the cereal? And then you can tell it what type of thing that you're uploading. So for this, it'll just be a game, but you can see there's other options here. This is going to be an HTML project. So we're going to change from downloadable to HTML. When we use a game engine later in the class, we'll do a downloadable, but for now we're just doing HTML. And then for release status, you can really put whatever you want here. In development is probably the most appropriate, but it doesn't really matter what you put here. For pricing, you can put no payments unless you want to, set up your bank or whatever. Just go with no payments for this. And here's where you actually upload your project. So you can click Upload Files and open this HTML file. And there's a couple things that we have to click here so that it'll work correctly. So there's a button here that says this file will be played in the browser. Just click that, and then all the other options go away because it's not a downloadable. And then we want to decide how it should run in the page. For this one, I think embed in page is fine. You can set the size, or we're not using Unity, so you can ignore that. So the default size is pretty small, 640 by 360. We can take a look at what that looks like, and if you think your project would look better at a different resolution, you can change that. You can ignore all of this stuff because we didn't do any of that. And then in the details, you can write whatever else you might want to write about your project. So I'll say this is a game where you decide to eat muffins or eat cereal. You can add whatever other information you might want in there. For genre, I guess we could put interactive fiction. It's not really interactive fiction because you're not typing. It's more like choose your own adventure. Or I guess we could put adventure. Whatever you want there. For tags, you don't have to do this, but you could tag that it's Twine. You could tag other things. I wonder if there's an MMP 270 tag. I guess I've never used that before. So you could tag it whatever you want. AI generation disclosure. If you didn't use any AI for this, just click no here. If you did use some AI, that's okay for this assignment, but you just have to obviously click here where you used AI, and then in the project itself, you should include, like little disclosure tags that say, like, if an image was generated with AI, just put that under there. Of course, you don't have to use AI. You can ignore this whole thing if you want to. And then for community, leave the comments on. And then for visibility and access, this is one that you really have to make sure to remember to click. It's really like a lot of people forget to do this, so a lot of the time I'm just reminding people to do this. This has to be public for other people to see it. And if you want it to be unlisted, that's fine. It won't show up in Google results, whatever you prefer there. And then you can also add a cover image here. You don't have to do this, but it definitely makes it easier to see the games. I think I actually deleted my muffin image, so maybe I'll bring that muffin image back and use that as my cover image. It doesn't, whatever you want to put there is fine. It's not necessary, but it makes it a lot easier to see which game is which. And then just click Save and View Page. And when it loads, you're going to want to click Run Game and make sure it works. So that looks pretty good, but when I run the game, see, it's not big enough to actually play the game. So this is another thing that you want to be careful about. The window isn't large enough to play the game. So if your game is only text, you could probably get away with this, but I think an easier way is just to make it open in a new window. So I'm going to go back to edit the game by clicking Edit Game, and I'm going to turn off embed and go to launch full screen. Or wait, maybe I can just... Oh, I could put scroll bars in it. Let's see if I put scroll bars, and maybe if I make it a little bigger, maybe I'll do like 800 by 600. I'll see if that looks okay. If not, I'll go to full screen. Okay, so now I can run the game. Oh, I put this background that makes it kind of hard to see anyway. Okay, so that's something I'll have to fix on my own. I still think this is kind of confusing because you have like two different scroll bars. So let's actually just do full screen. But I would just take a look at how this looks when you publish it and just make sure it looks okay. And I'll have to fix some of this in a moment. Okay, so a couple things that you might want to do. You can edit this page. So if you go to edit theme, You can do things like you can change the background color of the page. You can change the font if you want to make like a different font. You don't have to do this stuff, but it might make the game look better. Maybe I'll put the muffin as the splash image on the game. And then you can save all those settings, and you can obviously edit them later. So that's basically it. The last step, now that we've created the game, is to submit it to the jam. I'm going to do that, but then I'm going to go over how to make a change if you make changes to the game after you've uploaded it. So let's go back to our Twine jam. As I mentioned, I'll put a link for this on the Open Lab and Brightspace and this video as well. So to join this jam, you just click on the Join Jam button and then click Submit Your Project. And you have to be logged in for this to work. And then you're going to have to find your game. I have a lot of games from previous semesters in this account, but there's the new game that I just created, Muffins and Cereal. I'm going to click Submit, and then I'll be able to see this in the submissions page. So if once you've done everything, you should see your game here in the submissions page. And when we all have our games up here, we'll have some playtesting time. So you'll be able to go, each game has its own page on the Jam website. So if I'm on the main Jam website, I'll just see the submissions thing. If I go to submissions, I'll see the actual games. And then if I go into the game, it has its own page where I can leave comments. So when we're doing the play test, you'll play each other's games. And then, for this game, I might say, there's an obvious issue with this game, which is that you can't read any of the text because it's the same color as the background. So I might just say it's hard to read the text. It's the same color as the background. So that's, an example of just a suggestion or pointing out something that doesn't work. If the game doesn't run, or if links don't work, or if image embeds are broken, all these different things are things that we want to test for. You could also make general comments about the story is funny, good job. Or you could say, I would love to read more about the muffin flavors. Whatever it is that you want to kind of give feedback, things that you think are good, things that you think could be improved. Obviously be constructive. You wouldn't just say this sucks. You would say something that's useful. Even when you're making positive comments, they should be useful in some way. If you just say this is cool, good job, it's not really that helpful. If you say oh, it's funny, or it's scary, or whatever, descriptive adjectives or descriptive words. That way, even if you're just saying oh, good job, this is really funny, if my story was intended to be funny, that's good feedback. If my story was intended to be really scary, then that also helps me realize that okay, maybe the scary part isn't coming through. So it's good to be encouraging and positive, but we also want to give descriptive feedback. And so that can be either, again, just descriptive words, like what your observations were or what your experiences were, but also specific suggestions like this page is broken, or this part of the story didn't quite make sense to me, other things like that. And then you can just post the comment, and that's the basic idea. So you will get all the comments on your own page, and you can read through them and then kind of figure out, are there certain themes that come out? Is everybody saying this is really good? Is everybody saying oh, there's this part that needs help, needs work, or whatever? So you can take out a couple of those themes and then update your game based on that feedback. Okay, so I'm just gonna go back and show you how to make changes. Just because once you get the feedback, you're going to want to update your game and then upload it again. Okay, so let's say I get this feedback. I learn that, there's this issue with the text color. So I'm going to go back to my project and I'm going to play it and try to figure out what the issue is. And so I can see here on the muffin page, I have this problem where the text and the image background are kind of the same color. And so it's hard to see. And so there's a couple ways I could deal with that. I could either change the text color, or I could get rid of the background image. So either one is, it doesn't really matter. I just want to fix it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add another rule. So TW story is kind of like the main element for this. And I'm not expecting you guys to know a lot of CSS, so if you need help with this kind of style stuff, let me know and we can go over it. But I'm just going to change the color of the text, which is just color, to, let's change it to orange. And let's test from here. And now we have some orange text, and that looks better. So we are good to go with that. Okay, so I've only made one small change, but let's imagine that I've made all the changes that I want to make, and I'm ready to upload a new version. And you can do this as many times as you want. So the file that I downloaded earlier, this is like whatever it was at that point. This file is still, that previous version. So even when I make changes in the interface on Twine, it doesn't update the file that I downloaded. That's just a snapshot of whatever it was at that time. So what I would probably do is just delete this. If you're making changes, there's no reason to keep old files unless you've made a lot of changes and you want to keep a backup or whatever. But you can just delete that file. And then we're just gonna publish the file again. And so we have a new file. Again, if you wanted to, you could say number 2 to add different versions just to keep track. But I would probably just delete the old file and download a new one. Now, when I go back to itch, if I go to my own game project, if I'm logged in, I can go to edit game, or if I'm just logged in and I'm on my dashboard, I can go look through my projects and find, here's this muffin game, go to edit game, and then this is the file. I'm just gonna delete this file and say, okay, delete. And then I'm gonna upload a new file, which is just this new HTML page. And remember, we need to click, this file will be played in the browser for the HTML part to work, and then click save. If you don't click save, it's not gonna actually update this. Then we go to view page, and we just wanna confirm that our change worked, and it looks like it did. It's a little strange that it's going to this page. I'm gonna test this in an incognito window for a second. Okay, I think it just is remembering where I was. Okay, so that's not an issue. I think it's just caching. It's just saving where I was in the browser. Okay, so you can see my game. So you want to test and make sure that your change actually worked. Sometimes you might skip a step or miss a file or something like that, and you think you updated it, but then you go back and you realize that you didn't. So that's how you can update the game. And again, you can do that as many times as you want to, as many changes as you're gonna make. All right, so I'm gonna stop there. I'll stop the recording